Welcome to this episode of Unstoppable Journeys. My name is Ryan Gubick, founder and personal CFO of MRG Wealth, and I'd like to introduce you to a special guest we have today, Dylan Lougheed, CEO of SAGA Wisdom. Welcome, Dylan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So we were talking a couple months ago about a big problem that you and your team are helping solve in Canada. And is it Canada or maybe even worldwide?
Yeah, so about 70% of our customers are U.S., and then about, I would call it 28% is then in Canada, and the rest is sort of a couple customers internationally. So
Very cool. So global company.
Totally global, yeah.
And can you share a bit with us, what is the problem that you solve?
Yeah, so basically the problem we solve, and can I take you back a bit on the story?
Please.
Okay, so I'm an engineer. I've spent most of my career in the high-tech space and the energy space, or more specifically oil and gas space. And I actually moved over to the oil and gas industry in 2011. And I was an engineer by training, but I wasn't a petroleum engineer. In fact, fun fact I'll get back to later, but most schools no longer have petroleum engineering programs, even though the demand for labor really hasn't gone down a lot in the last couple of years, I would say. Anyways, so I had to learn all this stuff, like most people in the industry, by sort of hands-on and learning by mistakes, right? And learning by mistakes are great as long as they're not costly mistakes, right? So, and then fast forward a little bit later, I was working with, three of my co-founders, basically. We had all sort of observed and had talked about this problem of it's really hard to get good trainers in our industry. So like if you want to go and do a training on somewhere, a lot of the times the expert isn't in your locality, and you have to pay a lot of money to go to a conference or go somewhere where that expert is, or you're bringing experts in-house, and it's often was really hard to get those experts in-house because most of the time their time is spoken for, and they're only one person. So that was the real challenge. And then because of that challenge, often what we'd find, and this is what our customers would say to us, is that, yeah, I can get some training in a specific subject for my company maybe in 2 weeks, but it's not going to be that A-list person. It's going to be someone who maybe doesn't have all the experience. Maybe the content they've built in their course is 10 years out of date. So the problem we solve, getting back to it, is really the scalability of learning and upskilling in the energy sector. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide learning that is, first of all, relevant to your job. Second of all, you can access it at any time. And third of all, it's not cost prohibitive, I will say.
And how is that impacting the companies and the employees? You mentioned how difficult it is to get proper training and the right training and the right people. The skill set is maybe disappearing with the changing of the guard. How is that impacting people that don't have the proper training to upskill and get that specialized?
Yeah, so there's the people, and then there's the business, right? So for the individuals, right, it's I can speak to it a lot. It's really hard when you're starting out or you're going into a new area in your career, and this is happening all the time, by the way. Like the energy sector is far from stagnant, right, in terms of what's happening. There's other things coming down the pipe with CCS, there's hydrogen, there's geothermal, there's all these other applications, not to mention how the technology is evolving on the conventional or sort of traditional oil and gas developments, right? So things are ever changing. So even if you're, to sidetrack a bit, even if you're in your career and you're well established, something's going to change, and you're going to have to upskill again or reskill.
What's that quote? Change is the only constant in life.
Yeah, right. So basically, that can be a painful process, right? And we were talking to actually some clients just the other day about how to help people build their careers in the energy sector, and one of the things that's been noted is, if you're an individual and you have some gaps. Most people fake it till they make it, right? So you get the job and then you figure out your gaps, but you don't necessarily want to disclose those to your manager, or maybe not all at once, right? You might not feel comfortable. So it's a hard process to then say, okay, how do I get those learnings? If you have a resource where you can access what you need, you don't even have to tell your manager. You just get the bits you need to do your job. That's a really effective way of doing it. So that gets rid of one pain point, right? The bigger pain point, or I guess the bigger problem is, well, I mentioned it before, right? There's not a lot of people coming into the industry fully trained up in what they're going to do at their job. There's no petroleum engineering program at UFC. I can't remember now if mine still has one or not, but a lot of these schools are scaling back. Why? Because they don't have the students to support the program, but the demand for the labor is still there. So what does that mean? That means that they have to get trained on the job, right? So that's the only way to do that is to find people that still have the aptitude in some other area and bring them in. And that's going to continue to happen. And then layer on the fact that now you might need to go and do some, a new project in some other area where the company doesn't have expertise. Companies will refer to this as their new energy teams, right? So they'll go up and say, I want to do a carbon capture project, or I want to do, whatever it is. So again, you're gonna need to get those skills on the job. You're not sending someone off. Well, in most cases, I would say you're not sending someone off to do their master's or PhD to go do that, right? It's got to be learned in the time frame of when the project's going to be implemented. So, yeah, it's a big problem. It's a shortage of skilled, trained people that we have in the industry, and a high demand for energy going forward, whatever the mix is, right?
And how much does the baby boomer generation retiring kind of complicate this even further?
So I wasn't, I think, yeah, it does. And I was going to get into that, but I thought, you know what, hopefully, or a lot of people know that now, right? It's, so there's the baby boomer aspect of in every industry, but that is actually compounded, that problem where there's sort of this wave cohort of senior people that have left, that problem's compounded in the oil and gas, the traditional oil and gas sector, because there was also booms and busts that kind of aligned with when so there was sort of booms coming in as some of those late boomers headed into the industry, and then there was busts where there was no one hired in between, and then there was a boom again, with the shale gas revolution. Those people have gone from sort of junior to intermediate, but then there's this gap in between, right? That's much bigger than it probably would be in other industries where they didn't have that period of limited hiring. So yeah, that's a problem. I think that's basically done now, in my opinion. It's like, this is what we have, and so that's probably partly why we exist. Is there was already this problem. It's not like a problem for the future. It's like this problem's existed for a while. Yeah.
Sounds like a huge opportunity too for either young people coming up in their career, or even individuals in their career that want to upskill to take on more specialized work and have maybe different career paths.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's something, I was just reflecting a little bit the other day when we had this conversation with a customer, and saying, one of the real problems in, with some of the companies we deal with that are are mainly oil and gas producers, right? Is how do you sort of convince someone that it's valuable to learn this stuff because there's going to be a future in this stuff, right? So, for example, someone might say, hey, I'm a reservoir engineer, okay? So, but I want to get into, I want to sort of have a job in 15 years, and maybe I'm worried that, the company or the oil field I'm working on might be mature at that time, and I need to have that next path forward. They might say, well, I don't want to, why learn this if it's not a good logic, but why learn this if I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna need it in 10 years or whatever. I don't know if that's probably a little bit unfair to take that, but there is something there in terms of providing someone with like their learning path, not just for like this year, next year, but like what does that look like in the future? Like how am I going to build my career, and where's my North Star to like what I eventually want to get to in terms of my career? And if someone wants to get into, let's say, geothermal energy, the cool thing is that there's a bunch of transferable skills there, technical and non-technical. And I think like if we can sort of, yes, we're going to have specialized courses in geothermal, and we already do, but like if we can also kind of get the sort of the fundamentals and have people really strong in these fundamentals, they can carry that sort of pathway along that fundamental track into geothermal or into carbon storage, or continue to develop whatever the next thing is going to be in resource extraction, right? So
many transferable skills then from one area to another.
Yeah, so I think
I
guess I'm kind of rambled there, but like what I think we can start doing is providing not just here's the learning and go. Companies choose what you want your people to learn, or people choose what you want to learn, to actually building that, being that career tool, right, for people to build up their skill sets and build towards whatever they want to be in 10, 20 years.
Yeah, the vision.
Yeah.
We talk about that with our clients all the time. Is like, what is your vision for what you want in life? What does success look like, right? Yeah. And then all these other tools.
How many people give you a straight answer to that, or not a straight answer? How many people have an answer for that?
Very few.
Yeah.
Very, very few. So one of the first questions I ask is, do you believe having a clear vision from a company perspective helps you achieve it, right? Especially if it's talking to business owners.
Yeah.
Pretty much 100% of people are like, obviously, of course.
Yeah.
And then the next question is, okay, do you have a personal vision statement written down that tells you what you want to achieve in your life?
Right.
And then it's like deer to headlights.
Right.
You're like, you tie the two, connect. You're like, okay, why do I treat business this way, but not my personal life?
Right.
And there's a huge disconnect in vision. And then help clients along their journey to figure out, okay, what does that look like?
Right. Yeah, because people tend to prioritize their work as the here and now, and like that's that, and then they don't. It's hard to make that space, right, to do that planning.
Absolutely. So. And the personal journey is as important, if not more important, I would argue, than the corporate journey, because the corporate journey is super important. But once you have your career, most people don't want to work till 100, and usually when you get down to their vision or what success looks like for them, most people don't say, hey, like, I want to beat an index, or I want to have X amount of money, or, the corporation do this. It's usually around family, change, giving back, milestones that are important to them, that all these tools, company, work, personal finances all tie in.
Right.
But it's a bigger purpose for most people.
Yeah, for sure.
So can you share a bit about your journey? Why did you want to create SAGA Wisdom? Like, what made you go from, energy and engineer to say, hey, let's fix this problem and create a company called SAGA?
Yeah, so first of all, I didn't create SAGA Wisdom. It was a group of 4 of us originally, and then it's been an expanded team. But there was 4 co-founders originally. I think you'd get a different answer from each of them. But I think what we all shared in common is none of us had ever actually started a company and started solved a solution from sort of zero, right? Like, we have nothing, and we're going to try to do this. So I think everyone was aligned in sort of that purpose, right? Like, we know this is a problem. It's bothering us that this is a problem. Let's stop actually just chatting about it over beers and start actually doing something. So, I think that was one of the purposes, right? Like, just that desire from everyone to start something from zero. So for me personally, I'd worked at mostly technology companies, mostly in the space of providing software to oil and gas producers. So I'd manage product portfolios and stuff. So my colleagues, some of them have done, sales and account management for those companies. So we all knew how the business worked, but, we were sort of on, running off the prior work of other people who had started those products and had left, right? So that that to me was very much something I wanted to do in my career, and I think the same for my co-founders. We all kind of got jazzed up about that. And you can be in a job for a certain amount of time, and you start at sort of a small company, and it's got that certain feel and that certain flexibility and entrepreneurial spirit. And as you get to bigger and bigger companies, that I'm going to say tends to go away, like in general, not all companies, but that tends to go away. And some people just want to get back to, okay, well, like I want that experience again, right? So that chasing sort of the small company, growing company experience might have been part of it as well.
And what are some of the things that you and your partners love most about the small company growing experience?
Yeah, I think like all of us are all sort of, how can I say it? Like we're all entrepreneurial in the sense that we like people to be not have to be told what to do, right? Like if you know what the objective is and you know what the expectations are and you have expectations of yourself, then if you have an idea and it fits with the vision and everything else, just go do it. Like don't come and ask me or don't wait to be told, right? And I think that's what we liked about the small company sort of entrepreneurial environment is, and it depends what you consider small, right? You can get this with like 500-person organizations, but that ability to just, okay, I know this is going to have a huge impact on our customers. This idea is going to generate revenue. I'm going to start exploring this idea and start gaining support around that. Like that to me, a company where anyone can do that to some level is a really fun place to work at.
So much power, empowering people and being agile.
Yeah. So that like we started at a company called Fiquet Associates. Well, we started our careers in oil and gas at that company, all four of us, and that was the attitude of that company, was like, don't sit around, waiting to be told what to do. Go do it. If you see a problem, go fix it. No one's gonna get mad at you, and if you do, talk to your manager. They'll sort it out. That was the idea. So.
Very cool philosophy.
Yeah.
And can you share a bit about the solution that SAGA Wisdom developed for these big problems in the industry?
Yeah, so basically, like what we did is built an online learning platform. So if you look at Coursera or Udemy, maybe little bits of Masterclass, there's elements that you would see in our platform in terms of how that feels. It's at your own pace learning system. But what we also give is we're building that more around. We built that more around the corporate setting. So one of the challenges with online learning is that you can do it anytime you want. So it's a great benefit, except it's like having a gym membership with no one telling you to go to the gym, right? So some people can naturally just do that. Other people need a little more structure, right? And so we built a bunch of sort of features or functions within our platform to help motivate people to learn, either create their own learning plans for a course, or I should say more of a schedule type thing, or allow teams to get together and learn in certain ways. So we've done a whole bunch of sort of feature development in and around that. And that's the core of the platform. The other thing is the way we offer it to our customers. So it's completely a bundled subscription. It doesn't matter who you are at the organization, you can get access to it, and you can decide what you want to access. Your manager may say, well, I don't want you to do, not that we have basket weaving one-on-one, but I don't want you to do basket weaving one-on-one. I'd like you to do that. That can happen. But at the end of the day, there's no barriers to getting in there, the barriers to entry. So that's the main solution. And then what we've recently, or I shouldn't say recently, it's been over a year, I guess. We've implemented some. Let me back up. we had AI. Everyone says they do AI. We had some AI that we've been using for a long time to do some of our transcription of videos and things like that. I'd be interested to hear about your AI tool after. Be able to go and search for something anywhere on our platform and get right to the point in the course and in the lesson where that happens. So if you've ever,
cool.
yeah, so if you've ever like taken a course and you have a notebook and then you jot some things down because you heard something important, and then you go away, and then like 3 months later you're working on something and you remember that, but you don't remember exactly what they said, and you're flipping through your notes.
Yeah, you're looking for like find word geothermal, and it comes up 500 times, and you're like, crap, where is the specific?
Well, I was going to say more flipping through your notes and say, what did the instructor say in that class? I know it was important, and it's not on my note. It's not on my slides, right? So with this, you can go back at any time. You can search. You can add notes, and that'll take you back to that lesson. It'll be indexed, but you can also search. So I could search for something and go back to the lesson to relearn it. And that's something that you can't do in an in-person environment. That's a one and done thing. So that's we've done that for a while. But what I'm excited about as well is what we've when ChatGPT kind of surfaced, we started to look into this, and our CTO basically built this RAG system. So basically what it does is it allows you to search content within our platform and get GPT-style answers. But what's the main problem with GPT? It's that you search for the answer, you get something, and you don't know whether it's BS, whether it's how much of it's correct, and you have no audit trail of where that answer came from. What ours does is actually it gives you the audit trail, it gives you the references, it gives you the lessons in our platform where this was said, so you can go back and do that due diligence yourself, because you're not going to make a multi-billion-dollar well completion decision off of something a language model told you, even if in that instance it was correct. But if you have the audit trail, you can do it.
Yeah, understanding the why is sometimes half the battle. It's like, okay, that's the answer, that's great, but why is that the answer?
Yeah.
And does it search through the audio as well, or is the audio all transcribed, or how does it, find if we're just talking? How does it find the exact words?
So we've already transcribed everything as part of our process. So we didn't have to go to that extent. That's already being done. So this is just a layer on that.
Very cool. I can see how that could be a huge help for both, the participant learning and also the companies, because it's probably more efficient and effective to have your team and your employees go through all this.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, and also again, getting back to that person I talked about earlier, where if you're brand new to the industry, or you're brand new and you're too scared to maybe talk to a colleague or ask your boss about something specific. The old way was to go comb Google, right? And now you have this resource where you can ask that question, and then you're actually going to get training that comes with that question, not just an answer someone posted on the internet. So, yeah.
Very cool. And do you have an example of a client you've worked with that had these challenges with training, both at the corporate level and their employee level, to upskill, and how this solution developed helped them in their journey?
Lots. I'll generalize, and like a local operator here, for example, they've been probably 3 years now as client, maybe 4, but they have just insane usage and activity in the platform, and basically they were looking for something. They knew they bought some new assets that were different than the assets that they were used to operating. They knew that they needed some upskilling and some skill, some new skills added to their senior people's toolkit. And so they basically, leadership came out and said, okay, well, we need to have these these learning objectives for everyone to learn something. That came through their sort of performance management, their company, I guess their HR type system, to say, okay, everyone needs to be learning some new skills, and you identify that yourself and with your manager. That's on their side, and then they found us and saw that, okay, well, we can just use SAGA for this. Like basically everything we need to do or almost everything we need to learn is in SAGA. and so they just continually develop, and they're, presumably their staff are getting more and more knowledgeable and hopefully better and better at what they do. So that's there's a couple companies that fall into that bucket, but that just kind of gives you an example of how things, we like to see things go.
Well, and super cool, powerful that you just said, not only is the technology and the enablement for the team and the company there, but the content, like the content they were looking for, you already have this, curated, specialized content available for people to be able to use.
And if we don't, we'll go get it, right? And I think it's important to say where we're, we don't always have everything everyone wants immediately, right? But that's our job to go and find that content, and then because it's a subscription model, when the movie comes out, they're going to get it, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, and even if most of the content's there and you're just adding to it, it's, I imagine, a lot quicker than starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And so how do we, do all the work that you guys have done over the last number of years?
There is like a lot of companies that will do internal training too, and like I want to be clear. I mean, this isn't like a panacea. Like it doesn't replace everything with respect to learning and development, but there's certain times where maybe someone internally is doing training for the entire company. Okay, that's one person that does that every year. That's a bit of a risk if they, move on.
You're the person that needs to attend that training is sick that day.
But it's also like it's a big time commitment, and if that person's supposed to be really focused on high level like technical operation of their business, let's say they're a specialist geologist or something, and they really should be helping with like making those big decisions, teaching geology 101 may be something that the company wants them to do, but it may be something that they can outsource, and then they come in for the more advanced and the more specific stuff to their operations, right? So we see a fair bit of that as well.
Makes sense. Now, for the audience that's watching this, if this is resonating and they're having similar problems to what you're sharing, what should they be, asking themselves, or maybe what can they or should they be doing to help, solve this problem around upskilling and training, their teams?
Other than calling us? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's one option.
Yeah.
You guys have a great website.
No,
too.
I think the question is just asking that question, like, do I have, like, am I learning? Am I continually learning in my job? Like, I think that's like the number one for us. That's kind of our philosophy is like, are you continually learning? And are you making space for learning and upskilling? I think that's like, everyone can ask that question. Doesn't matter where you are. And then I think the other thing is for managers to say, like, have we made that space for learning, right? And have we communicated that value for that? Yes, we want you guys to be properly trained for your job, or have that access to resources you need to learn. Because you can say, I'm sure if you talk to any CEO, they would say, yeah, of course we value our employees having the best skill sets and having the most up-to-date training, all those things. But then there's the action piece, right? And one is it's time. Like, you have to give time. A lot of people will say, well, people can do it after work. Yeah, you can do that. You can have a culture where you say, hey, people do that after work. I mean, lots of times I've been doing extra stuff after work. But also the flip side of that is, if you're not providing any space during that workday, then are you really, what message are you sending? And I think the message you're sending in that case is, whatever immediate task is in front of you is always going to be more important than you developing, right? And so that gets through. Your actions get through in terms of how the leadership looks at things. So I think
ties into culture. Yeah.
So again, it's that question: am I providing the space, and am I communicating? Like, are we communicating through how we lead the importance of learning? If it is important to you, if it's not important to you, that's fine, right? But so I'm sure lots of people as managers have had that sort of thought before. That's definitely been something for me before, where I realized, this is another job. Like I've been too much focusing on the here and now, and I haven't really been focusing on helping, like, guiding these people in their development, their long-term development.
Yeah, if you want to build a culture, you can't just say the words. You have
Yeah,
to follow with the actions and set that in motion.
Exactly.
Really good reflection points.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Dylan. Appreciate you coming on and sharing
Thank
this.
you. Yeah.
Is there any other items you'd like to share with us today?
Well, if you gave me items that I was supposed to put in there, I've forgotten them. So I think this is great.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Wonderful.
I guess the one thing I would share is, if you are interested in SAGA Wisdom, the easiest thing you can go do is go to sagawisdom.com and join our mailing list. Because yes, you can go and browse the course content, you can get in touch with us, but if you join our mailing list, you will get access to all, so sometimes we do freebie learning content, first of all, so you might get some free things there, but also you get, anytime we have a new course come out, you'll get that notification, so you'll know, if I'm interested in something new, I'm gonna see that come in and maybe take that course.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'll add your website to this video too, so people can go check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Appreciate it.
Dylan.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, this wraps up this episode of Unstoppable Journeys, discussing solutions to problems to help make your journey unstoppable. Thank you for joining, and have a great day.